Bombshell tonight, the Nolan Wells autopsy furor. This as the FBI swoops in. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us.
I find it very difficult to believe that not one, but two medical examiners cannot figure out why he had deep red subcutaneous markings.
Preliminary findings, and this is significant. Focal area of red discoloration in the soft tissue of the back of the head, the occipital region. He said the etiology is unknown at this time. He said the body was received after the initial autopsy. He said the body had marked decompensation. Another limitation faced by this forensic pathologist was the absence of the anterior internal neck structures. The trachea and the laryngeal cartilage, the thyroid horn, and the hyoid bone were not received with the body. So he's saying that the throat was not received with the body when he got Nolan Wells' body in Washington, D.C. to perform the second autopsy.
The only question that we have is what happened to our son. That is the only question. We have consistently been degraded by the public. There's been questions about our parenting, our GoFundMe, this, that, and other. I've been called a racist. I am a healthcare provider, and I take my job very seriously. I love everyone. And it's been difficult for us, but we are leaning into our faith, leaning into one another, also leaning into all of you.
You were seeing family attorney Ben Crump followed by Nolan Wells' mother speaking. Dear Lord in heaven, what is wrong with people? If this were your child, wouldn't you want to know what happened? He goes out with friends. They all come back. He's dead. I don't understand the hate directed toward Nolan's family and to everyone looking for answers. At this hour, I don't think anyone is guilty, but I do know that there is a conflict in the stories, and we are not stopping until we know what happened to Nolan Wells. So you can send all the hate and vitriol you want. Have at it. That from our friends over at NAACP. Straight out to Joseph Scott Morgan. We got an all-star panel lined up to analyze what's happening at this hour as we are learning the FBI has swooped into this investigation. And that is not disparaging local law enforcement, although they did apparently jump the gun at the get-go and say no foul play suspected. Well, I suspect foul play because I don't know any differently. Maybe it will turn out to all be an accident. But as of right now, we need a full-on investigation. Joe Scott Morgan, before I give your very, very long intro bio, where's the throat? I know we have deep red markings on the occipital bone that's in the back of the... thank you. This is directly from the autopsy. We want you to see what the family has seen. Don't you think, Joe Scott Morgan, that the second medical examiner might need the throat to figure out what happened? I mean, Joe Scott, it's on fire, claims that Nolan Wells had been lynched, that he had been strangled, asphyxiated. Do I believe a lynching occurred? No, I do not believe that. But I do know I need to see the neck.
Yeah, and let me tell you where the neck is. Or the organs of the neck, as it's referred to. These neck structures are actually being held by the Mississippi State Medical Examiner's Office, and they don't just arbitrarily hold things like this, Nancy. This is something that would commonly go with the body when the body is released. So I deduce the fact that they have seen something there that they're trying to hold on to from an evidentiary value. Remember, the state still has an ongoing investigation in this case, and they see evidentiary value in this. And yes, I know that the second autopsy prosector up in D.C. would have liked to have seen this, but he understands this, why they would retain it. And it is being retained, I can promise you that, as are other tissue samples. But the problem is that when you get into these structures in the neck, one of the things you're trying to assess is, was this a drowning?
As district attorney, I do not have the same freedom to share information publicly that private individuals may have. That is not a theory. That is a sentence from Jackson County District Attorney Angel Myers McElrath's August 18 statement concerning the death of 18-year-old Nolan Wells. And that sentence matters because while the government is saying there is a limit to what it can publicly discuss, the internet is doing the opposite, collecting footage, comparing timestamps, preserving posts, and asking whether the digital record tells a different story. Picture the case as a crime scene made of glass. Every TikTok clip, every timestamp, every phone record, every boat photograph is another shard. None of them, by itself, tells you what happened. But put enough pieces on the table, and you may begin to see the shape of what investigators are looking at. Before we go deeper into what the documents and newly circulating footage actually show, make sure you're subscribed to Project Cold Case, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. Now there is an important distinction we need to make immediately. TikTok users are circulating additional footage connected to the Horn Island gathering, but footage being circulated online is not automatically authenticated evidence. Some clips can establish time and location. Some can establish who was present. Some can be misleading. And some may eventually become important precisely because investigators can verify their original metadata. That distinction is everything. Because Nolan Wells disappeared after a 4th of July trip to Horn Island, Mississippi, and his body was recovered 2 days later, his family has questioned the early assumption of accidental drowning, while authorities have said the investigation remains active and that the case is expected to go before a grand jury. An independent autopsy commissioned by the family was unable to determine a definitive manner of death. Now enter the footage. One previously surfaced video appeared to show the boat associated with Nolan's final known movements. Reporting on that clip noted that the footage was posted as having been captured earlier in the day, while metadata reviewed for another version indicated a different recording time. That does not prove anything sinister. It proves something more basic. The timeline needs to be tested. And that is where social media becomes potentially useful, not because TikTok is a courtroom, but because ordinary people sometimes preserve fragments that official investigators may later need to locate, authenticate, and compare. The question is not, what does TikTok believe happened? The question is, what can the original files prove? That is a very different question. The public record already tells us that Nolan's family has pursued digital evidence through formal legal channels. In July, court documents filed in Mississippi State Chancery Court sought records from Meta platforms, Snapchat, TikTok, and Life360, including messages, photographs, videos, GPS information, timestamps, account information, and other electronically stored data. Think about that for a moment. A grieving family did not merely ask strangers online to investigate. They went to court, and the court filings matter.
How could that come from the blood sinking down post-mortem? It just, first he was face down, so it would sink to the blood would go to his face. That was would be the lowest point. But after that, after he's dead for a period of days, I don't see how the blood could then continue to pool in a different direction. And we are getting reports that he was sent to the second autopsy face down. I find that hard to believe, but that's according to reports.
Yeah. And so understand this, with decomposition, okay, It's like I said, it's going to be diffuse. And this second autopsy, I don't know if people are aware of this, but you can read through the report itself, and it's very, let's see, it's very, very graphic in the sense that this doctor that did this case, that did the follow-up, he did such an extensive dissection here. I'm talking about stuff that we don't normally do at autopsy. He's done the back, he's done the buttocks, he's done the backs of the legs, the arms, the hands, even the back of the head. He took this even further than the people in Mississippi did. And this is something that we normally do, so folks understand, this is something we normally do with an in-custody death, all right? With where it is this extensive, and he doesn't see anything from a hemorrhagic standpoint like direct trauma. The big question is this pattern on the back of his head, and I'm calling it a pattern because of the way he's demonstrated this with his diagram on the back of this thing. And he doesn't go into great detail about that in the autopsy report. So how did it get there?
What I want to know is all these witnesses are right there. Brian Trasher, don't, like planes, have a tail number? Can't you identify who these boats are by their markings, by their numbers, by their identification? They've got names written on the side. They've got tail numbers, so to speak. Have all of these people been brought in? I mean, tell me how to identify a boat and how to locate the driver and bring them in for questioning about what happened that day. Because listen, Brian, the friends say we left him with Katie. Katie apparently has been found and says, no, he left with his friends. Okay, right there, I've got a problem. How did everybody leave Gilligan on the island waving, hey, I'm here, and they all left him? I find that hard to believe. I've got to find out what precipitated him going into the water and how that fits in with the marking on the back of his neck. Do you see where I'm going, Trasher?
Absolutely. And yes, to answer your first question, some of these boats, just by the names, people that name the boats, and if you can detect registration numbers, if it's registered in the state of Mississippi, that's easy to find. I'm told that over 60 people have been interviewed by law enforcement. I don't know who they are or how they were brought in, but there was a lot of interviews that have been conducted. I'm assuming there's going to be more. With regards to, what happened, that's always been the question. That's why his parents want to know. There's just absolute black hole from about 4:30 p.m. on July 4th until he washed up Monday morning, where nobody seems to know anything. Nobody seems to have seen anything. There's conflicting stories, as you pointed out, from his friends and people that saw him that day about who he was supposed to leave with. Did he want to stay back? All that. It's all hearsay. It's all secondhand. There is a massive hole in the story. And that's why this has gotten...
Because they convert a social media mystery into a legal evidence problem. What was posted? When was it posted? Who controlled the account? What device created the file? Was the file edited? What does the original metadata show? And most importantly, what communications existed before and after Nolan disappeared? Those are questions a forensic examiner can potentially answer. And here is where the story gets even more interesting. The family and the district attorney's office had previously agreed to a joint forensic examination of Nolan's phone, with the digital forensics lab at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College identified as the proposed location and possible FBI participation discussed. But by mid-August, the examination still had not occurred. The family's attorneys said they were ready and asked the DA's office to choose a date between August 18 and August 21. The DA's office, meanwhile, has emphasized that it cannot publicly disclose investigative details and that it does not control information released by private parties. Different institutions, different obligations, one unanswered timeline. And here is the ticking clock question: if the phone's social media accounts and original video files contain evidence about Nolan's final hours, how long can that digital trail remain perfectly preserved before accounts change, files disappear, metadata is altered, or memories become less precise? That is why this is not simply an internet argument. Digital evidence has a clock. And once you understand that, the phrase "more footage" takes on a different meaning. It is not automatically a bombshell. It is a potential timestamp. That is the first turning point. No stone unturned. Now consider what the newly surfaced material can and cannot establish. A video showing Nolan or his boat at a particular time can potentially challenge a claimed sequence of events. A video showing other people nearby can establish opportunity, but not guilt. A clip showing an argument can demonstrate that an argument occurred, but not what happened afterward. This is where responsible analysis has to slow down, because the internet has a tendency to take one frame and build an entire verdict around it. We are not doing that. We are asking what the evidence can actually carry. And there is another reason this matters. The district attorney has set her off
life when you go to smalls.com/Nancy, SMALLS, smalls.com/Nancy. 60% off your first order, free shipping, and free treats for life when you head to smalls.com/Nancy. Thanks, Smalls, and thank you from our cat, Cinnamon. The investigation goes on. And for all of the detractors on either side, we're not stopping. So you're wasting your time. As the case is being built, remember, if you know or think you know anything regarding this case, please dial 228-769-3063. If this were your child, wouldn't you want the answers, even if it brings down the roof of the courthouse? I would. Tonight, we remember an American hero, Sergeant Jeremy Brown, Clark County Sheriff's Washington, shot in the line of duty, leaving behind wife Jill and 5 children. American hero, Sergeant Jeremy Brown. Thank you to our guests, but especially to you for being with us tonight. Nancy Gray signing off for tonight, but I'll see you tomorrow night. And until then,